Welcome back. Now, the #1 story of the week, the Biden administration's budget request shows the White House wants to blow up hiring all across government. Human capital pros worry the hiring process that isn't working well now could make the administration's plan a lot more complicated. Jeri Buchholz is former Chief Human Capital Officer at NASA. She's a strategic advisor at the Charles F. Bolden Group. Michael Rigas is former Deputy Director and Acting Director of the Office of Personnel Management. Welcome to both of you. Jeri, I start with you. There's a fear that I'm hearing about this week about forcing a lot of money into a process that doesn't really work that well, as I referenced a moment ago. What's your sense of how that could work or what would make it work?
I think the thing we need to remember is the process is the process. There's no bandwidth in Congress to reform civil service personnel. They have so many huge problems to deal with. The process is what the process is going to be for the next 5 years. I don't see any substantial legal reform coming up anytime in the near future. And that means that you have to really break down the current system and reassemble those blocks in a way that is more modern and works best for federal government agencies and their unique missions and hiring requirements.
Mike, welcome. Thanks for joining the conversation today. What does OPM have to offer agencies to do what Jeri just proposed, to help them basically, it sounds like she's proposing, taking the system apart on their own and put it back together again?
Well, thanks, Francis. Good morning, and it's great to be back with you today. I think we really need to return to first principles here on the very basic question of what we're trying to get done here. More government and bigger government is not better government. I think what's needed is good leadership and focus on mission outcomes, as Jeri just mentioned. I assume no one bothered to ask federal employees themselves if this is the right course of action. As a data point, according to the most recent federal employee viewpoint survey, which just concluded just a few months ago at the end of 2020, when asked, federal employees said, my work unit has the job relevant knowledge and skills necessary to accomplish organizational goals. That 81.9%, 82% responded positively to that, which is actually the highest ever recorded. And when asked, they said, my agency is successful at accomplishing its mission. That was another record high at 81%. So I think we need to ask, really, what is the problem that we're trying to solve here? Because I think federal employees think that they're able to get their job done today.
Jeri, what is the problem that agencies will try to solve then if Congress goes along with what the administration wants and proposes bringing in a bunch of people? The issue is, from the perspective of the people that I've talked to over the years, the issue is not that the people don't want to work for government. It's getting them through the system to get them into government. Right, Jeri?
Right, that's absolutely correct. And during this period of time when things have been slower, several federal government agencies have really dug deep and modernized their tools and processes. There's a big project going on at the Department of Commerce, which has all new tools and uses AI and other techniques that are, really what's going on in the private sector and what needs to happen in the federal government. So those agencies should really be able to benefit from the resources that are coming their way. Additionally, there are things that OPM could do from a regulatory perspective that would make it easier for people who want to return to federal government service to return. I think there's a large pool of people out there who would return to federal service if that was easy enough, an alumni pool. And things like the proposed giving people credit for their private sector work so they don't have to come back at the same grade level that they left, and other things like a blanket dual compensation waiver for retirees so they can have their retirement they earned plus earn the federal salary that they are working for, and then easier interchange agreements, easier to get and easier to use with the accepted service agencies so that people can flow in and out of the competitive civil service from those accepted service agencies. There are so many more of them now than there used to be.
Mike, you were nodding your head in agreement as Jeri was putting her points out there. What did you hear there that you think would be easy to implement for OPM or for the agencies?
Well, I think we can point to some of the great successes is, in fact, what we did last year. At the beginning of the COVID crisis, when I was acting director of OPM, we leveraged every existing authority we had to help federal agencies execute on their mission. So, for example, the VA said they needed frontline doctors and nurses and other support staff to be able to respond to the pandemic. And because of the numerous flexibilities we afforded them, the VA was able to hire over 50,000 people in 2020. And now that's just an incredible amount of folks. And as Jeri also mentioned, we need, what needs to be done is looking at the nature of work in the 21st century. So, the IRS closed processing centers in Covington, Kentucky, and Fresno, California, because people are not printing out, signing, and mailing in paper copies of their tax returns anymore. They're filing them electronically. So that's not an indicator of a gutted workforce. That's just life in the 21st century. So we're using more robotic process automation and artificial intelligence to do more work. And I think those are the questions we need to look at, the nature of work, because hiring can be done if you have good leadership and focus on that.
Michael Rigas, Jeri Buchholz, thanks very much for joining the conversation today. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Francis.